Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Dana with the Data, and I have again Mr. Gregg Marcel Dixon. Hi,
Hey
how are
Dana,
you?
how are you? I'm good.
Good. It's been a minute. I was telling you off camera where you've been. Usually when people go MIA, that means they're actually doing some work in the real world. So
Yeah,
important
exactly.
work. So I reached out to you. I wanted to have you come on the platform because I came across this video of Senator Clyburn. So I wanted to talk about Clyburn, Jim Clyburn, because we all feel, have a disdain for him because he doesn't, I look at it, he doesn't do anything for his district in South Carolina. And you were running against him when you were running for Congress House Representative. So I'm not going to play this 10-minute video, but he was basically talking about, how the Trump administration is cutting funding, whether it's for national parks and cutting funding to erase Black history. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Like, do you think Trump is erasing history, particularly Black history?
To be very honest, Trump himself, I will have to say that he could probably care less. I don't think Trump gives a damn about what history is being taught. Trump, in my opinion, is concerned with his own agenda and promoting that. However, Trump is surrounded by people, in my opinion, who are unabashed white supremacists. They think they're supreme and they want to promote the image of themselves as being supreme. And they are definitely wanting to erase Black history. So I actually agree with James Clyburn. He's not telling any lies. However, James Clyburn will not agree with what I'm about to say. James Clyburn and the Democrats are trying to erase Black history as well. And that doesn't get talked about enough.
Can you elaborate?
Sure. When the Democrats talk about American history, who do they say built America? They say immigrants built America. They say immigrants make America great. They completely ignore the contributions of us foundational Black Americans, those of us who have the status as freemen. They accredit everything great about America to immigrants. So while the Democrats won't be as explicit as the Trump administration has been, where they just come out and say, hey, we're reviewing the African-American Museum of History and Culture to see what's in there, because y'all talk about slavery too much. Let's talk about some of the good things, which is really a nice way of saying let's whitewash slavery. The Democrats won't come out and say that. But what they will do is go to an African-American Museum of History and Culture and talk about all the immigrants that came over, talk about the LGBTQ, talk about the other oppressed groups, using our platforms, our sacred sites to promote the history of other people. The Democrats do that. I also want to call James Clyburn out. Do you know one of the reasons that I got involved in politics? It was actually by accident. I'm not sure if I ever told you the story. I was trying to make Black history mandatory in South Carolina. South Carolina, even though it's not as Black as it used to be, it's still one of the blackest states in America. It's still the 5th blackest state in America. And I feel that South Carolina, which is about 30% Black, the student body in South Carolina is about 35% Black. I feel that Black history should have been mandatory. I wrote my state reps, state senators, I wrote my federally elected representatives, James Clyburn being one of them, begging them to help me make Black history mandatory in South Carolina and beyond. At this time, the Democrats, federally speaking, had the House, they had the Senate, and they had the presidency. James Clyburn ignored me. Now, I figured after I went through the emotional reaction of this is what these representatives do, they just ignore people. I was surprised. They just lie to people and say, we'll get back in contact with you. They don't. After I kind of processed that, I went to a town hall where I had sort of a viral interaction with Clyburn. I went to a town hall and I saw several people went up to Clyburn and they thanked him for responding to their emails. So his team at least, deliberately went out their way to exclude my email. They deliberately ignored the matter of trying to make sacred Black American history. So now he wants to protect Black history. He had the chance when the Democrats had the House, the Senate, and the presidency. You did nothing. Let me explain to y'all how this works. I don't care how you feel about the Republicans. I don't care. I'm going to tell you how the Democrats work. They love the fact that the Republicans are blatantly anti-Black American. You know, as a party. I'm not saying every individual Republican is anti-Black American, but they're, as a party, they do promote a lot of that. The Democrats do too, but they're very subtle. The Democrats love that because they didn't get to come along and play hero. They get to say, oh, Black people, you see how the Republicans want to erase your history? Well, we're here to save the day. Look at us speaking out against it. Then as soon as they get back in, they say immigrants built America. Immigrants made America great. This Black American person was somehow an immigrant, and this is who we should accredit the greatness of America to. They do the same thing. They just do it in much more subtle ways.
Mm-hmm.
And James Clyburn right now, he's just doing this to try to promote the re-election or increase the re-election chances of the Democrats come this midterms, which is right around the corner.
Right, which is, that's next year. And it's funny because when you went to them that was under the Biden administration.
Yep.
That was under the Biden administration. They were focused on the illegals then. That's why
they
ignored everything Black, basically their base, and 20% of the base voted for Donald Trump. So, you know, and it's still majority of Black people are Democrats, which is why he is still in his seat. But yeah, it's like they're crying wolf. So you ignore Black people when you had the power, and now that you don't, you want to say, oh, he's a racist and he's trying to erase Black history. But I also want to put this on the table as far as education when it comes to Black history. Should it be up to the public schools to specifically teach about one's history? Now, American history, yes, they don't teach civics, and I think that's a problem. But is the responsibility more on the parents and the community? Because I would say yes, because you don't need a president, you don't need the presidency money, sort of say, you don't need their approval to teach in your community, to teach at home. So do you think that it's better for parents and the community to teach our history than to rely on the public school systems?
It's absolutely better. One of the biggest mistakes we made was pretty much turning our kids over to the public school system. Now, I don't believe in segregation as being imposed by the government. I don't feel the federal government has a right to say you can go here, you cannot go there. However, I believe we made a huge mistake with giving up our own community schools. I am glad to read that a lot of Black parents, Black families are choosing to homeschool their children. I support that. And I'm a public school teacher. So some people may be thinking, well, hey, aren't you putting your own job at risk? Well, no, because fortunately or unfortunately, most parents are still going to have their students, their children enrolled in the public school system. But I love the fact that we are the fastest growing group of people who are homeschooling their children. I love the fact that even in my small town where I live, there are Black families that have gotten together and they have formed homeschool consortiums where a teacher in the community takes a group of Black children from a motley of different families and they teach them. I've even been asked to do that, but unfortunately, it would have been the wage I need right now to make a sustainable living. So I love that. The thing is, we have always done a better job of educating our students. Our students behave better with us and they perform better for us. That's not anything racist. That's just the facts, because we know our history, we know our experience, and we also know the challenges that we are going to face out in society. So I'm not saying that a white teacher cannot teach a Black child well. Absolutely, they definitely can. I know plenty of white teachers who are excellent teachers. But I also have seen way too many Black kids fall through the cracks. I fault the parents. Yes, because you have to be your child's number one advocate and you have to be the number one person holding your child accountable, but also fault the system indeed, which if we know the history of the American public education system was not set up for Black people to succeed.
Can you elaborate on the current status of South Carolina education system, particularly in the Black community and overall? Do you see a increase in graduation, in proficiency testing, reading, math, do you see things improving, staying the same, or getting worse?
It's about the same. On average, when it comes to ELA, which is speaking, listening, reading, writing, Black children in the state of South Carolina, around 40% meet or exceed the state standards. That doesn't mean the ones who aren't meeting are illiterate. Just because you're not meeting the state standards does not mean you cannot read, write, speak fluently, and listen intently. However, they're not meeting the state standards, okay? They tend to score around 25 percentage points lower than white students. Now, keep in mind, Black students, this is my academic experience, we tend to go to schools that are the least funded, that have the least experienced teachers, and that are in some of the most troubled areas. That's not by happenstance. That's because we live in communities that were redlined. We live in communities that went through the legacy of Jim Crow. We live in communities that were the tip of the spear for the crack epidemic of the 80s and the 90s too, to some extent. Mm-hmm. So these things are not just by happenstance or because we suck. This is the product of centuries-long disinvestment and outright terrorism of Black communities. However, we can still do better than what we're doing. And that's, again, why I reiterate, I'm glad to see we're homeschooling our kids. I'm glad to see that we are taking a far more active role in our children's education. Black parents have always cared about their children's education. Matter of fact, there are several studies that show that a Black parent is more likely to speak with their child on a daily basis about doing well in school and getting a good education, because it's been denied to us. But there are other factors. So yeah, in South Carolina, when it comes to ELA, it's around 40% of kids meet or exceed the state standards. The other kids, I think it's like another 30% are approaching mastery, but they're not quite there. When you are approaching mastery, that means you probably have mastered 50% of the state standards, but you still need a lot more support to actually be considered satisfactory.
Okay.
And math is a little lower because math is a struggle throughout the entire state of South Carolina. So yes, there are struggles that are exacerbated in the state of South Carolina, as you will probably find throughout the nation for Black students.
I didn't ask you to reintroduce yourself, like to give a little bit on your background, because you have an educational background. You are a teacher, you a certified teacher at that.
Yes.
So can you just briefly tell the audience who you are?
Hi, y'all. Gregg Marcel, Dixon. I ran for office twice on a reparations platform. Didn't win, but as far as I'm concerned, I didn't lose either, because people still write to me. People who are elected officials ask me about my reparations platform. And by profession, I'm a teacher of 21 years. I'm an award-winning teacher. I've been school teacher of the year, district teacher of the year, academic coach of the year. There was a program in South Carolina called EVOS, and I was EVOS 5, which is the highest you can go, meaning you are the most effective teacher. I have won plenty of awards for my students' test scores, and a lot of my students were Black, showing it can be done. I'm tough on my students. I make no apologies for that, and that's why they do so well.
Right. Your fundraiser, because I want to get in. I want
to say it real quick. And like with my students, like with Black people, Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, when we are treated right and left alone, we do well. When I have been in schools that treat me right and leave me alone and let me teach, my kids do phenomenal. When I'm in schools that terrorize me, as what you're about to bring up, yeah, unfortunately, it's a trickle-down effect.
So let's talk about that, right?
Yes.
I want to share your GoFundMe. So it says, "Help me seek justice after 10 years of dedicated teaching."
Yes.
And I'm going to put the link for everyone. Please go and donate, support Gregg Marcel's GoFundMe. So why do you have this GoFundMe? Because I could read the description, but I want you to talk about it.
Well, this is the school where I became school teacher of the year, district teacher of the year, academic coach of the year. I wrote grants, and I brought in probably upwards of $30,000 just from my grants alone. I wrote grants for other teachers as well. I was EVOS 5. I had a very, very successful career. It all started going downhill in 2020 when I started advocating for Black history to become mandatory in the state of South Carolina. One of the people I wrote was the CEO of my then district. I did it outside of my work hours, but I wrote the CEO of my then district because I'm like, this is education. I'm advocating for students, thinking that he will want to help me. Well, once I did that, my director, Dr. Karen Wicks, and the assistant director, Brian Morris, they approached me, and they weren't nasty, but they seemed to be pretty irritated, as if I almost put them in an uncomfortable position. When
Were
I
they
wrote
white?
CEO, huh?
They were white?
Oh, yeah, they're white.
Okay.
I guess that I wrote the CEO of the district. I guess he probably felt irritated. He probably said something to them. And I could just tell they were becoming uncomfortable with my advocacy work, even though it was outside of my job.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was put back in the classroom because at that time I was an administrator. I was academic coach, which is a semi-administrative role. And then there were some other things done. They started nitpicking at all my actions. And in 2021, things really escalated. When I announced I was running for office and it was going to be on reparations, and I started talking all that Black stuff.
that was a hot thing during that time.
Dr. Karen Wicks called me in over the summer, asked me did I think about how my actions would impact the children. My patriotism was questioned. I was referred to, long story short, as an angry Black man, not once but twice.
They said that?
Oh, yes. At one point, she said that my words made me appear to be the angry Black man.
This is a white woman here?
Oh, yes, she's white. And then when she told me she would not invite me back, she said that she had already spoken at one point about me being an angry Black man. Now, you know, they're trying to make the argument that there were other things going on my record. My record was fine until I started advocating for racial justice. And that's when things started going downhill. They can say what they want, but they know it's the truth, and my record speaks for itself. So all the time while I was running for office, I was fighting this as well. But I was speaking up for us. I didn't want to speak a lot about me. But I've been representing myself. In the state of South Carolina, probably like in many states, it is very difficult to get a lawyer to represent you. If your case is not going to bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars, most lawyers don't want to be bothered with you. So I've been representing myself. It's been very stressful. It takes an enormous amount of time to research. So I'm not a lawyer. I'm not pretending to be a lawyer. But what I do know are my rights. I do know court procedures, routines. However, now it may go to trial because they think, because I'm not a lawyer, they think it's going to be a cakewalk, and it's not at all. They think it's going to be easy to run over me in the courtroom, but it's not. However, I need to prepare myself for trial. And I am teaching. I've been teaching again for 3 years now at schools that I've actually loved. Okay. But however, I work for an agency that contracts me out to a school. So this agency pays well. However, they don't do PTO. I get no paid time off. So if I have to take off to go to a pre-trial conference, if I have to take off to, do things with the jury or the potential jury pool, if I have to take off to go to anything judicial, I don't get paid for it. So this will help me with, first of all, consultation, because I do sometimes talk to other lawyers so I can learn from their expertise.
Has other lawyers say you may need to eventually get a lawyer?
Actually, they've told me different. They've told me no. They said at first they were going to tell me yes, but a lot of them tell me after speaking with me, they said they have the utmost confidence I can do it myself with no problems. I've had several lawyers tell me that. First, they always start off saying, look, you might need to get a lawyer. After they speak with me, they have confidence in my ability to build upon an argument, to follow the procedures, and to go with, because see, the thing about the court, procedures matter, okay? They really do matter. Language matters. After they speak with me, they say they have the utmost confidence. They have no doubt that I can do it myself and do just fine. However, if I want to have the option to get a lawyer, my fundraiser would help. Right. But as of now, I do consultations with lawyers every so often, not all the time. to help tap into their expertise, and this will help cover the times that I'm off when I have to do something judicial. So that's why I've been asking the family for help after really putting this on the back burner for so long because I was running for office.
So, but isn't there a procedure if you're a teacher and you feel as though you've been dismissed illegally or improper? Isn't it something in the teachers union that helps you with that as well?
Well, South Carolina, we have quote unquote unions, and what they'll do is they'll give you legal advice, they'll give you legal counsel, but they won't represent you. So what you do is you go to the EEOC. And I did that. I went to the EEOC. They gave me my right to sue letter, and then you use that to take your employer to court. And that's really your recourse right there.
Do we still have an EEOC under Trump?
Oh, yeah. We still have an EEOC under Trump, yes. Okay. And I don't think they will want to get rid of it because, a lot of these white conservatives, they feel that they are discriminated against. So they're going to want the EEOC to be around because they might need to use it.
I would say let's talk about that, honey, but no, because your focus is to get justice in your situation with should we say the school board or that school?
I'm suing Dr. Wicks in her personal and professional capacity, and I'm suing Royal Avos Academy in their professional and personal capacity.
Okay, so not the school board.
No, not the school board.
Okay,
Dr. Wicks, who's the director, and the actual school itself, Royal Avos Academy, the entity. And I'm going to see it through the end. Come with me. I have absolutely no fear of quote unquote losing. I can't lose. I've gone further than most people have ever go when they are discriminated against or treated unjustly otherwise on the job.
Have you reached out to other Tariq Nasheed and other people in media, definitely to donate and to get the word out? Because if people start talking about or bringing light to your case, will that help? Will that help?
It definitely would help. And Tariq is actually the person who brought it to people's attention. So, okay. Yeah, I reached out to him first. Right. I know he has a large platform, and he's actually the person who helped to bring it to the attention of the masses.
Okay. Okay.
And, I had mentioned this before. I mentioned it years ago. But like I said, I was focused on the campaign.
Yeah. I don't remember you mentioning this because I knew you were running. We were talking about reparations, a Black agenda, the election, and everything else that was going on. Nobody wasn't thinking about it. It's like you said, now you have the time to really pursue it and, to go full-fledged with it. You mentioned earlier that a lot of Black people left South Carolina. Where did they go?
Well, it's funny. South Carolina is the only state in America where the white population is growing. So, but there's a caveat. I was at a tech event in Beaufort, South Carolina. Mm-hmm. Beaufort's a town probably an hour from Charleston, South Carolina, 45 minutes from Savannah, Georgia. It's 25 minutes from me. Mm-hmm. And the mayor of Beaufort was there, and he was saying how there's been a lot of celebration in the newspaper about all the growth Beaufort is experiencing. But he said there's a problem. He said that they're all 55 and older. He said he's trying to attract younger people. Mm-hmm. So South Carolina's white population has been growing, but it's a lot of white retirees who are priced out of the market of Florida, or they've lost their taste of Florida, and they want to go somewhere new, so they come into South Carolina. However, South Carolina's Black population is growing as well, and that's because of what's going on in Charlotte. Charlotte is right on the South Carolina-North Carolina border. So what's happening is the housing market in Charlotte is so expensive that you have a lot of young Black Americans who are moving over on the South Carolina side to see if they can find cheaper housing prices, because there's a rural county right on the border of Charlotte, and then there's Rock Hill, York County, which is a pretty nice county, and some are moving there. However, South Carolina is seeing a slight exodus of its Black population because a lot of Black South Carolinians, we're rural, we're country, like me.
Right.
And unfortunately, they have to leave to find opportunities. And South Carolina, not just
where they're leaving to
district. Well, some are going to the Atlanta, which is still a big draw. Some are still going to Atlanta, but a lot are going to Charlotte. So the good news, however, is that when they go to Charlotte, they usually come right back over the border back to South Carolina. So some, however, go right over into Savannah, which is
Okay.
right by me. Like I'm 30 minutes from Savannah, Georgia.
Oh.
Some go over to the Savannah, Georgia, Pooler, Georgia area because sometimes you can get more jobs. They're like working at the port.
Right.
And sometimes they feel like there's more housing options over there too. And that's a big issue in South Carolina. Lack of housing. Not just affordable housing, but just lack of housing.
Well, are they building houses?
Oh, no. And you see, when they do build houses, we get a lot of illegal immigrants who get in them. That's why I support what Donald Trump is doing. Get these illegals out of here. I'm not doing it based off of hate. I'm doing it based off of love. Love of my people, love of my country, and love for the rule of law. Because if it was us who were here illegally, no one would be showing us any mercy. So I'm glad Trump is getting these illegal immigrants out of our communities. Get them out. He has to also look into mass immigration, which means even illegal immigration that's out of control hurts us as well. By the way, ICE is very active here in the Low Country where I am. You know, they just did a big bust over in Savannah, Georgia. Well, right outside Savannah, Georgia.
I didn't know that, really.
The Hyundai factory.
Yes, okay, that was in Savannah. Okay,
yeah, it was a bunch of South Koreans. But a year before that, they did a huge bust. It was not Trump, it was actually under Biden. It was called Operation Blooming Onion. It's the largest human trafficking ring in American history right here over in Savannah, Georgia.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Then they're in Bluffton, South Carolina. Bluffton's like a really wealthy town, like 30 minutes from me. They snatched up some of these immigrants there. So ICE is very active here. I don't think it has something to do with that.
so then you don't have a problem with the National Guards being in Chicago. Not National Guards. He has the federal agents there now, and ICE. Of course, I don't have a problem with ICE in Portland. So you don't have a problem with Trump deploying National Guard in the sanctuary cities, basically.
Let me tell you what I think Trump is doing. I think that, there's always been a lot of suspicion about Trump trying to federalize the National Guard. And Trump has pretty much admitted he wants to, so they can help up with deporting illegal immigrants. I think he's trying to say that these cities have so much crime and he has to deploy the National Guard. I think he's really doing that just so they can assist with deporting or apprehending these illegal immigrants. Just think about it. In D.C., Trump really wasn't bothering a lot of Black Americans. I mean, and the Black people who I heard from in D.C., they said that the federal police, which has always been the police in D.C., they've always kind of bothered them. That's not new. But most of the people who were apprehended were the people who were there illegally. It's happening in Chicago right now, happened in L.A. Most of the people, I think the majority of the people who are getting apprehended are the people who are in the country illegally. I think that's his focus. Now, do I want our people to be harassed by the police? Absolutely not.
I don't think we are, though.
We're not.
We're not.
But I think we have to also have an honest conversation. In some communities, our people do live in fear of violent crime. Now, on paper, the violent crime may not be that high. You listen to what these little white bigots say, or even not just white bigots. You listen to what these anti-Black American bigots. It's not always white people. Sometimes these quote unquote Black immigrants say the same thing. Non-white people. You listen to what some of them say, you'll think Black Americans are going around shooting and killing all day. When I always like to go with the facts. According to FBI data, and I say this on Twitter all the time, and I have not been proven wrong yet. They like to use Grok to try to say, well, Grok, is this true? They don't even use Grok as though it's true. Less than 1% of the Black community commits a violent crime any given year. Less. And when you think of the Black community, that includes the Black immigrants. Okay? But so if you just exclude the Black immigrants and just make it with foundational Black Americans, that means less than 1% of us, I think it's like 0.33%, commit a violent crime. So this whole myth that we're going around committing violent crimes all day is a myth. Let's address that. However, there are people in communities who do live in fear, who do feel that violence is an issue in their communities. And I can speak from experience. In my town, we had a spate of extreme violence at one point. Some people do want some sort of assistance. Do I think it needs to come from the White House? No, not at all. I think there are other ways to address violence. One way, if you want to address violence, you address poverty. That's
Mm-hmm.
the best way to address violence, address poverty,
And,
because
and also
usually,
job opportunities as
right,
well.
violent
But
crime
but
correlates with poverty.
right. But I do see some people who, and this is how I look at it with the Trump administration, because no one came to this current administration with a black agenda. They didn't come when he was president the first time he was president with a black agenda, right?
Right.
However, um, even though, getting rid of DEI and all that stuff, okay, fine.
It wasn't
I
helping us
think
no way.
right. I think this could be a golden age for Black America, because all right, there are a lot of programs, if you do research, that this administration does have, especially when it comes to engineering, tech, becoming an electrician, welding. They do have a lot of federal programs where they will pay for you to go and get certified, and that's just like one aspect. So okay, yeah, he got rid of the whole DEI agenda. It wasn't, like you said, benefiting us anyway, but I just think that what he is offering when it comes to business and employment, because if you get rid of illegals, then why don't you come in and be that construction
And
worker?
that's
Because
been
they have to
happening
pay
actually.
you, not, yeah, they have to pay you an American decent wage, not the legal wage. So I just think overall, I just think this could be a golden age for Black America if we
You
apply
know,
ourselves
I
to
think
that.
I think that's the beauty about us. We can make any age a golden age. Hell, we were enslaved and we
Yeah.
were still having golden ages. But you're right. I think that with the Trump administration, first of all, I'm open to talking with anyone. I was open to us speaking with Biden. But see, the thing with Biden is he had our ears, he knew our demands, he had the platform to do it, and he ignored us. Instead, did all the things that he said he couldn't do for us for illegal immigrants. So he gets what he gets. I have no sympathy for that
Mhm.
person. The thing with Trump,
Right.
Trump ran as a Republican. The Republicans generally don't check for us because we don't really check for them either. However, I do feel, and I've always felt this way, and I'm going to continue to feel this way, if we can get a sit down with Trump, not these Democrat shills who sit down with him and they just try to get sound bites. If one of us from the grassroots
Right.
gets to sit down with Trump, I really do think we can get good things for our people. And then I want to correct something. I just looked at the updated averages for Black students in South Carolina, and in ELA, it's around 50% meeting or exceeding the state standards, and in math, it's around
Okay.
40%. So it has gone up quite a bit, but it's still not where it needs to be. So I just wanted to bring that part up.
Yeah. Okay. Was it at one point? Was the
Oh
numbers
yes, especially after
worse?
COVID. We had that COVID. Oh yeah, it was definitely
Oh,
worse.
okay. So it's not long ago. It was
Oh yeah.
recent where it was worse. What was after
Well,
COVID?
after COVID, we had a lot of kids who were in there who were still acquiring foundational skills, who were online,
Mhm.
weren't coming to school. Parents weren't
Yeah.
making them come to school. Parents weren't doing anything with them at home. And people can make all the excuses they want. If you're a parent, you have to do right by your child. Find a way to make it happen.
Yes.
Don't try to tell the
Yeah, because learning
don't
starts
tell
at
the
home
teacher to
first.
find a way to make it happen. You as a parent set the example. You find a way to make it happen. So those kids missed some crucial developmental years, and it showed. It definitely showed. So we're kind of coming out of the COVID slump. So things are looking
Okay.
looking better. I won't say looking good, looking better.
One more thing, real quick, I wanted to share. Georgia highest court sides with slave descendants fighting to protect threatened island community. Um, it says Georgia highest court on Tuesday. This was end of September. Sided with Black landowners in fight over zoning changes that weaken longstanding protections for one of the South's last GULLAH GEECHEE communities founded by free slaves. The Supreme Court unanimously reversed a lower court ruling that has stopped a referendum to consider repealing a revised zoning ordinance passed by McIntosh County officials 2 years ago. Residents of the
Sapelo. Mm-hmm.
Sapelo
Yep.
Island opposed the zoning amendments that doubled the size of homes allowed in a tiny enclave called Hog Hummock. So you've heard of this story
Yes.
here?
Oh, yes, definitely. It's like an hour outside Savannah, Georgia, Sapelo Island.
So I always like to have or touch on Geechee Gullah with you, right? Because aren't you're
Oh,
part of that
yes.
Geechee Gullah? And what I know in South Carolina, there are Geechee Gullah communities still fighting to hold on to their land because they want to turn it
They
into a
want to make
golf
them to
course.
these resort islands for tourists or retiree communities.
Mhm. Right. So, I wanted to get your thoughts on this, and I wanted you to speak to, what is going on in South Carolina Geechee Gullah
Well, we need
community.
federal protection. A lot of our land is highly sought after because it's coastal, and South Carolina is a fast growing state, as with Georgia as well. So they want to expand highways, and of course, they want to put them right through our communities. Strangely enough, you never really hear about them doing that in majority white communities, but boy, they'll put a highway through ours as they did historically, and it was on purpose then as it is now. That's why we need federal protection. And that's why it irritates me when I hear
Hmm.
someone like Clyburn writing a bill or co-sponsoring a bill in the early 90s to protect the Catawba Native Americans who used to be slave hunters and enslavers. He writes a bill to protect their community, but Gullah Geechee, okay, their wife that he loved very much was Gullah Geechee, and he has done nothing to grant us those federal protections. He's done things to help acknowledge our rich culture, but not to protect us. So we need federal protection. That's really the long and short of it, to preserve our communities.
Hmm. And so, if you could guess percentage wise, right? What was the percentage of Geechee Gullah land at its richest point in South Carolina? Because the land is along the
Yes,
coast, I'm
along the
assuming,
coast
right?
and inland as well.
So so in the height in the most in the height of Geechee Gullah and now, like, what is the percentage difference in land, like land that was taken away? Like 50% of the land is only left, or only 30% or 20% of Geechee Gullah land is still there? Like, what is the percentage of the Geechee
It's
Gullah
hard to come with
communities
an
now?
exact number because thankfully we still own tens of thousands of acres of land, but it's in a system called heirs property, which means that it doesn't have a designated owner. Instead, it's split among descendants who each have a share in the land. It's a very tricky, messy form of land ownership when land is left intestate, meaning without a will. So it's hard to give a number, but I can tell you hundreds of thousands of acres of land has been lost. Some say it's been sold, but it was only sold because it was in the system of heirs property, where if one heir sold their portion of land, other heirs could be forced off. And that used to happen for a very, very long time. That has
Oh,
luckily stopped
okay.
now, at least in South Carolina, but it caused a lot of damage.
You ever saw that documentary, Silver Dollar Road?
No, I heard about it, but I didn't want to watch it because sometimes I don't want to watch about trauma that I've lived or I know other people have lived.
Okay, so that would have hit very
Yes.
close to home with you. Um, so basically, I get what you're saying now. So, just to sum it up, if Black people really stop selling their homes, no matter where it's at, what community, especially in I call Geechee Gullah communities, that's historical. That's like historical site. If you own it, you know, keep it and pass it down. I think that needs to be taught in our community very much so now than ever before, to hold on to our legacy, and pass it down to the kids, grandkids, and don't sell it, because like you said, if one person sell it, then it kind of forces everyone.
At
It's
that
like you
time, yeah,
inviting the
they
enemy
used to do
in.
what's called
Yeah.
partition sales. But luckily in South Carolina, there are laws against that now, thankfully. But it happened for a long time and it caused a lot of damage.
Right, exactly, exactly. All right. So listen, everybody. Thank you, Marcel. I love when you come on. I love having these discussions with you. You know, I'm going to be calling you again. Like, hey, can I interview you? I want everybody to go to Marcel's GoFundMe and donate. The link is in the description and it's going to be in the comment section. Go and donate and support. We love our Black teachers. We love good teachers. And, you know, and let's help Marcel Dixon, Gregg Marcel Dixon, get justice. And he is not no angry Black man.
Thank you.
At all. Yeah, honey. Like, I don't like that. You know what? And
my thing is, anger could be a force for good. Anger could be a force for good. Anger could be used for a lot of good. But when she said anger, she wasn't thinking of it as a force for good. She was invoking that stereotype of the angry, Black, scary brute. That's what she was doing.
Right. And that was unprofessional. And that's derogatory.
It was very derogatory. And they got the nerve to argue that it wasn't her, and her white lawyers are trying to argue that it wasn't. But yeah. But thank you so much, Dana. You take care.
Thank you. And thank everybody for tuning in. And I will see you guys in the next episode of Dana with the Data. Bye.
Dana with the Data. Dana with the Data.